this computer. Okay, right, let's go. Training basics. Okay, so we're just going to go over training basics, basically how you can maximize your training to get the most out of it, and then also obviously maximize your results and of course the gains. So we are going to discuss the benefits, the less obvious benefits, how hard should I be training, progressive overload, deloads and overtraining, warm-ups and cool-downs, how to get toned, and the importance of nutrition and training splits and the importance of rest. So first of all, the benefits. I'm just going to move your faces. There we go. The benefits of weight training. And this is, I mean, cardiovascular training, like running, that kind of thing, have very similar benefits, but for this I'm mostly focusing on weight training. So increased sleep quality and quantity. There's not actually a whole lot of research on like why weight training helps increase your sleep quality, but generally when you exercise you burn more calories, which means there is a great requirement for you to rest and recover. So that's kind of like the main sort of school of thought, but there's a lot of research that needs to be done on like how exercise can benefit things like sleep architecture, which is basically like how you move through the levels of sleep, like rapid eye movement, deep sleep, light sleep, that kind of thing, because it does have an impact, but they just aren't sure how yet. Strengthens bones and muscles. Obviously this is the obvious sort of, strengthening muscles is like a very obvious result of weight training, but strengthening bones is something that kind of is overlooked but is obviously very important. As we get older our bones do become more brittle, which means that as you get into your old age, your elderly OAP life, you are more likely to die from something like a fall because your bone breaks, and it's basically impossible for you to fuse back together. So it's actually quite a big thing. It also reduces the risk of things like osteoporosis, which is basically like brittle bones, and other bone orientated disease and illness, like bone cancer, and is it rickets or scurvy? I can't remember which one, but one of those. Improved posture is another one. So a lot of people obviously sitting down all day working at their desks. If you obviously weight train things like your back, your shoulders, basically your posterior, your chest, your arms, that kind of thing, you're going to have an improved posture, which means you're not going to be slumping like this, which means you're then obviously going to be less likely to suffer from things like a bad back or like tension in your shoulders, that kind of thing. And also a reduced risk of sort of general injury as well. If your muscles and bones are stronger, they're less likely to tear, you're less likely to have like bruising to them, damage, from like, I don't know, like minor, secondary non-gym related injuries basically. And also an improved ability to carry out daily tasks, and reduce risk of falls when elderly because of the benefits it has with things like coordination, cognitive function and that kind of thing. But someone once said to me, oh, I don't need to squat, when would I use that in my day-to-day life? You literally squat probably 4 or 5 times a day, probably more, hopefully, if you're drinking enough water, to sit on the toilet seat, to have a shit. So you do need squatting in your life. So don't tell me you don't. So, but general sort of, like picking up a deadlift is basically the form you should have when you're picking up something heavy. Shoulder pressing, picking up your children, putting things in the cupboards, that's a straight arm pull down. There are a lot of crossover between weight training movements, dumbbells, barbells, that kind of thing, and general day-to-day life activities. So yeah, that's basically that one done. Chronic illness management. Now this is kind of the things that you don't see so much, and it's more things that individuals feel and deal with themselves. One of the big ones is it can relieve symptoms of depression, anxiety, and PMS. And this is because when you exercise, it releases a hormone called endorphins, or it releases endorphins. And endorphins are basically what makes you feel happy. So, you know, exercising is basically like taking a happy pill every day. You know, and it's really hard to get into, obviously, when you suffer from depression and anxiety. You know, going to the gym and weight training is probably like one of the last things you want to do, but it's actually one of the best things you can do for yourself. Obviously, things like arthritis, you know, that's linked to strengthening bones and muscles as well. Fibromyalgia, a lot of body weight things like yoga is really good for things like fibromyalgia, but generally just putting load through it can help with the nerve pain and things like that. Heart disease, obviously, that's, you know, elevating your heart rate when you're lifting heavy weights. It's keeping your heart healthy. Asthma as well, that's more of like the cardiovascular side of things. Diabetes, it can help with insulin sensitivity, which means that you're less likely to get type 1 or type 2 diabetes. Yeah. And then dementia as well, obviously, because you're using your brain to think about the movement. So and that links quite nicely onto improved body functionality. So the things, again, we don't really see, but that weight training has a really big impact on is obviously cognitive function. It improves your metabolism. Basically, when you weight train and you gain muscle, it will increase your metabolism because you need more food to then sustain the muscle that you have then grown through weight training. So it really vastly improves your metabolism, improves your circulation. You know, if you're someone that really suffers with poor circulation because you're sat down all day, you know, if your hands and feet are always cold, because you are using muscles, your body is then sending blood and oxygen to those muscles. So your body basically has no choice other than to improve your circulation to get the blood and the oxygen to those muscles that you're using. Decreases lethargy. Now, this might sound a little bit sort of like, well, how? Because, you know, training makes you tired, but because you're getting those extra endorphins, you are basically decreasing the cortisol levels in your body, which also really impact on your general sort of energy levels as well. Also, you know, it's decreasing lethargy because it's increasing the quality of your sleep that you're having. So it's just generally really good. Like, one of the main things that a lot of my clients say to me after they've had like a week of exercising way more than they normally do or they used to, and obviously, you know, eating better, is you know, notice how remarkably different their energy levels are compared to, you know, before they were moving around as much. As mentioned before, increased insulin sensitivities is basically how your body processes carbohydrates and sugar and turns it into energy. Same with cortisol levels. You know, with the endorphin boost that you're getting, that's decreasing the cortisol levels, and it also improves your immune system. So yeah, those are the benefits of weight training, other than the obvious, it makes you look fit as hell. So how hard should I be training? Now, this is one of the most important things when it comes to training. Oh my goodness, I don't want my emails. Come on. Oh, I can't see this now. Like that off. So how hard should I be training? And the answer is to failure, basically. Now, what is failure? There's several types of failure, really. There's mental failure, and that's when you basically kind of just give up and you're like, oh, this is too hard, I don't want to do anymore. You then have form failure, and this is generally reached before you reach muscular failure. And form failure is when basically your body wants to take the quickest route to perform an activity, and it will do that by taking shortcuts to make it as easy as possible. Now, the thing with form is when you have proper form, you are recruiting all of the muscles you're meant to be using properly. So when you get to a point when you're doing a deadlift, you know, likely sort of towards the end, maybe you've got 2 or 3 reps left before you reach muscular failure, it's likely that your form's going to slip. So instead of having that nice straight spine that we like with a deadlift, you might start curving, or you might not bend down as low because it's much easier to pick it up sort of with your legs straight kind of thing. So that is form failure. Now, generally, when we talk about failure, we talk about muscular failure, and that is when your body physically cannot do another rep. Like the lactic acid buildup in your muscle is too much, the muscle is fatigued, it's not going to be able to do anything. Now, what you want to do is really, you want to be training to form failure, because if you then start training to muscular failure, and the line between muscular failure and form failure is very, very like thin, they're possibly 1 rep or half a rep difference. When you train to muscular failure, you're more likely to increase your injury, because obviously you're not completing the exercise in a safe way. So in every set we do, basically the first few reps should be non-stimulating, so you should feel them, but they shouldn't be really firing up your muscles. You should be able to do the rep range, say it's 8 to 10. The first sort of 4 reps should be quite easy, and it's after the 4 reps it starts getting quite hard. The final few reps then, as I said, being uncomfortable, and this is due to buildup of lactic acid, and they should be much harder to complete. You should almost feel like you cannot complete them, but as I said, shouldn't come at the sacrifice of form. And I use the example of a deadlift, but also if you're looking at a bicep curl, some people really swing their bodies back to try and complete the rep. At that point, when you feel like you need to do that, that's when you've reached form failure. And this is another reason why it's really important to send your coach videos of you doing the exercises. So this is the rate of perceived exertion scale. There's also a condensed version, which is like 1 to 10. Basically, what you want to be doing is training 16, 17. Like 16 to 17 is basically form failure. I would say 16 is basically the rep before form failure. So what you want to be doing is basically training within this green rep range, with the blue rep range possibly only training, at the 17, 18, on things like deadlifts, or if you're doing like a 1 rep max kind of thing. But generally personally I train 14, 15, 16 basically. And the reason I don't train at 17, 18 all the time is because it's just not good for me. And people can train at different RPEs for different lengths of time. Obviously, if you're training at this, you can train for a much longer length of time. If you're training somewhere around here, you're more likely to need a deload more regularly. But yeah, basically this is kind of like the golden area to be training in. But the thing is, you have to be honest with yourself when you're training to failure. Like if you genuinely finish a set and you think, actually, like I definitely had 2 or 3 more reps in there, then you need to take that into your next set and say, I know that I probably have an extra 3 reps in there, and that's going to be my aim. So you have to be honest with yourself. You have to want to push yourself, but at the same time, you don't be an arsehole about it, basically. Cool. So progressive overload. Now, this is probably the most important part of weight training. If there's anything that you take to the gym other than a drink, it should be a notebook. And this is to basically log everything that you're doing in your workouts. Now, without progressive overload, you're not going to improve. If you're lifting the same weights for the same amount of reps, you will look the same way in 20 years as you do now. The whole point of progressive overload is that you are trying to put your body under a certain force, so it has to adapt above and beyond what it has previously experienced, and that is where you gain strength, you gain muscle, and obviously, you're burning more calories because you are increasing how difficult everything is for you to perform in each set. So a notebook, log all of your workouts, log the weights that you did, how many reps you completed, You know, you might even want to put notes in there, but this is literally the most important thing. And every single workout, when you write down your fresh workout, you should be looking back at the workout you did the week before, looking at the numbers that you did. You know, if you're doing a deadlift and your rep range is 8 to 12 and you got 11 reps, then you would probably add some more weight. So you can then aim for the bottom end of the rep range and work your way up. This is literally the most important part of weight training. If you do not apply progressive overload to your training, you will literally get nowhere. You will burn next to no calories. And obviously you'll burn some calories, but the whole point of training weights is that you are progressively overloading your body. So it's forced to adapt, grow muscle, burn more calories, and improve the general look of your body. So this is literally the most important principle to apply to your training. Cool. So we train really hard for 6 to 8 weeks. We're getting to the point where everything hurts a little bit. We don't really feel like going back and doing our training session. Our weight has kind of stayed the same, it's plateaued. We're feeling a little bit disheartened. The exercises are getting a lot harder to do. You know, that 100 kilo deadlift that you did a couple of weeks ago, you know, you were getting 8 reps and now you're probably only getting 6. You're generally just feeling a little bit bleh. So this means it is time for a deload. Now, people are afraid of deloads, and with good reason. Jess is laughing because she's like, I was once. Deloads are probably one of the best things that you can do for your body. Now, you wouldn't run a marathon every day, would you? Like, you just wouldn't do it. You would make sure you have a rest. And it's the same principle with weight training. If you don't take a deload, you know, and people need to deload at different times. Blokes actually need to deload more regularly than women, because women can take a lot more volume than men, just because we're, you know, a lot better in general. So it's all very different, and it really depends on things like your training split, how hard you train, you know, what kind of exercises have you got in there. If you've got more compound lifts in there, then it's going to be more taxing on your central nervous system, which means you're more likely to need to deload more regularly. If it's mostly accessory work that you're doing, so a lot of dumbbell stuff, a lot of cable stuff, and not really that many compound movements, so that's by compound I mean squat, bench and deadlifts, or variations of, then you're going to need a deload less often. So yeah, it really is based on the individual, but generally, you know, you need a deload when you are aching all the time, you just generally aren't enjoying your training, and it's a different kind of, you know, it's different to I don't feel motivated. It's genuinely like I am bone tired, like there is literally nothing I would like to do less than put myself through this training session. So again, really important as to you know, one of the reasons why the check-in process is so important, because, you know, that's what lets us know when you need deload, you know, and then obviously we can schedule that time off for you. So there's lots of different approaches to a deload. Some coaches, you know, favor a reduced volume deload. And if you're the kind of person that, you know, doesn't really like taking a week off, then this is a good approach for you. You know, you can do, you know, similar workouts to what you have been doing before, but you just do less reps, or you use lower weight, or you train at, you know, a different RPE. So instead of training at RPE 8 or RPE 9, you would train at RPE 5. The best option, in my opinion, is literally just taking the week off. Now, this is because it gives your body the full chance to recover, completely reduces muscle inflammation. So it's very common when people take a deload for them to see their weight come down quite a lot. And this is basically as the body excretes like the you know, excess water retention that you're carrying from the muscle inflammation from training. And it just gives you a chance to reset, and recharge. And it just means that you can go into your next week of training, you know, refreshed, ready to smash it. And it literally just does wonders. Something that's very linked to deloads is overtraining. I actually did a post about it on social media today. But it's basically, the two are linked, because you want to deload before you get to the point where you're overtraining, but some of the symptoms of overtraining are indicators that you need a deload, if that makes sense. So you don't want to be overtraining in order to have a deload, but you're probably likely to getting to the point where you are overtraining. But generally overtraining means that you aren't having any rest days at all, you know, training 6-7 days a week, doing lots of weights, doing lots of cardio. You know, it's not really productive in any way. Your body will just kind of seize up and go, nope, sorry, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing anything you want. You know, you're more likely to get an injury, which means that you then won't be able to train at all because you have to recover from the injury. It will really where the balance of like obviously weight training benefits your sleep, it then goes past that and you have excessive fatigue, insomnia, you don't sleep at all, you just generally feel, you know, like shit. Performance in the gym, performance in life, energy levels, metabolism, it all just goes down the drain. So this is obviously the importance of you know, having a rest day. This is, you know, why we schedule you rest days. You know, it's very common, you know, when people start their plans and they want to go, you know, balls to the wall and they want to train every day and burn as many calories as possible, but it's just not productive. You know, there's a reason why we've scheduled you a rest day. So this is basically the reason, so you don't have to suffer with these. So next, warm-ups and cool downs. Now, again, a really important part of training that's often overlooked. I'm guilty of doing it myself. But this will really aid with your recovery, which will then in turn obviously aid, you know, how long you can train before you need a deload, how hard you can train, how often you can train, the quality of each rep, the quality of your sets, how you perform each exercise, how good your form is, that kind of thing. So basically pre-workout, what you want to be doing is 5 to 10 minutes low intensity cardio, and this is literally just to get the blood and oxygen to the muscles, elevate your heart rate slightly, you know, get yourself warm, that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be mega, it can literally just be like, you know, walking on an incline at your normal speed. It could literally just be walking to the gym. But this is, you just want to kind of like make sure that the blood is pumping basically. And some dynamic stretching. Now, dynamic stretching is often sort of like swapped around and done post-workout, and static stretching is normally people try and do it pre-workout. And basically dynamic stretching is basically where you are moving. So static stretching is like this. Dynamic stretching would be doing like a shoulder roll, and this is basically like obviously warming up muscles, but also getting your joints ready to take some load as well, and basically kind of like to get the joints moving, get the synovial fluid flowing, that kind of thing. So yeah, dynamic stretching, so basically moving. It could be like a walking lunge, it could be body weight squats, it could be literally doing the exercise that you're about to do but without the weights basically. Presets, depending on how heavy you're lifting, if you are, let's take a deadlift as an example, say you are doing 100 kilo deadlift, you would work up to that. You wouldn't just go straight in at 100 kilos. You would probably start with 40 kilos, do 3 or 4 reps, or 5 to 7 reps, then increase to 60 kilos, maybe do 3 reps, 80 kilos, do 2 reps, 100 kilos, you go straight in, but make sure you're having obviously sufficient rest. It sounds a little bit long, but it will really help get your muscles used to the load, get used to the exercise patterns, and just generally, properly prepare you to do that. I would say this is less important with obviously accessory work, like if you're getting towards the end of your workout, say you've got a tricep extension, and you've done a lot of upper body stuff already, it's not necessary to do a massive warm up for it, because your muscles are already going to be warm. They're already going to be activated from the workout that you've done prior to that. Compound, 100%, you should always be doing a proper preset warm up, dynamic stretching, and then obviously like doing a warm up, getting your body used to increasing the load over time, 100%. But towards the end of the set, if it's an accessory, if it's a machine, not 100% necessary, but I would definitely do, you know, like 2 or 3 reps at a lighter weight just to, you know, fully get your body used to it. But again, if it's accessory work, not 100% necessary. Post workout is when you do the static stretching. That is when you are holding a certain stretch and not moving for, you know, like 10 to 15 seconds. The reason you do static stretching after a workout is because the muscle is warm, it is more likely to stretch, it is less likely to tear. If you do it at the beginning of a workout when your muscle is cold, you're more likely to pull a muscle and injure yourself. The reason we do post-workout cool downs is to decrease the lactic acid buildup, and that's basically what gives you DOMS. You know, a short 5-minute walk on a treadmill just to decrease the heart rate, settle it down, some static stretching, and of course the most important thing is a good night's sleep, because that is when your body recovers and repairs itself the most. So next, now how to get toned. I laughed so much doing this section, because if you say to any coach, I want to get toned, their insides turn to acid, they get diarrhea, they become very ill, their eyeballs feel like they're going to fall out, they get the shivers. It's just literally the worst thing you could ever say to any coach, because it honestly means nothing. Because, and women, we are especially guilty of this, saying I want to get toned, because if you then turn around and say, all right, so you want to build muscle, they go, oh no, I don't want to do that. But getting toned, or toning a muscle, or like toning up, is basically a combination of muscle building and fat loss. It's actually what we call a body recomposition. So if you ever go in and say to a coach, I want to do a body recomposition, they'll marry you instantly. The other issue with getting toned and using that word is it kind of like misleading people, suggesting that, you know, if you want to tone your bum, that squatting is going to do that, and like spot reducing, you know, is possible. But it's not. Yes, squatting will definitely help you improve the overall appearance of your bum, because you will grow muscle and lose fat at the same time. So that is basically what it is. To achieve a lean, toned look, you need to lose body fat and improve muscularity. If you just lose body fat, you will end up what people call skinny fat, or, you know, just skinny with no tone, in inverted commas. You know, basically, if you say I want to get toned, and your coach turns around and said, all right, we'll do muscle building and fat loss, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to put you through a bulk and you're going to be shoveling, you know, 45 kilos of chicken down your neck every 5 minutes and intravenously injecting yourself a protein shake. What it means is we're going to give you a good amount of calories, we're going to do some strength training, and you are going to get really strong, build some muscle, and lose fat at the same time. And that is literally the best way of doing it. So, importance of nutrition. Obviously, this is my favorite section, because we all know that I love the food. So, would you fill a petrol car with diesel? No, you would not. And the exact same principle can be applied to fueling your body for your workouts. Without proper nutrition, you will risk decreasing performance, your body composition, increasing injury, increasing illness. You know, it's not going to help your recovery. Literally, nutrition is the foundation. I mean, nutrition and good form, but nutrition is the foundation of getting the most out of your training. You want to think about nutrition and training in the same way that you are filling up a car. You know, sometimes you're going to treat yourself to the super unleaded, and your car's going to feel $1 million. And, you know, sometimes you want to fill up your washer reservoir with Voss water and not tap water. And it's the same principle. You want to fuel your body with really good food to make sure that you can perform the best you can in the gym. You cannot outtrain a poor diet. It does not work if you shovel McDonald's down your face and say, oh, it's fine because I'm training really heavily, like really hard, and I'm lifting heavy weights. It doesn't work like that at all. You're actually probably going to be doing yourself more harm than good with that. So you can't outtrain a poor diet. So pre-workout, The best pre-workout, in my opinion, is oats. You can cook oats in so many different ways. You can bake them, you can have them as porridge, you can have them overnight oats. Oats is probably like my favorite pre-workout carbohydrate source, but other good slow releasing carb sources: brown pasta, brown rice, potato, sweet potato, brown breads, that kind of thing, brown tortilla wraps. As long as it's got like a high fiber content and not much sugar, then that kind of like slow releasing carb source. At least 40 grams for women, and probably roughly 60 grams, and that's a minimum. So the more carbs, the better, basically, but you don't want to go overboard. A minimum to high fat source. So again, for women and men, at least 10 grams. That could be a nut butter, it could be chocolate. Just be mindful, obviously, chocolate and nut butters both carry carbs with them as well. Oil, butter, avocado, mayonnaise, but it needs to be like at least 10 grams of fat. And the function, obviously, of the fat and the carbs is going to provide you with energy, but what the fat also does is slows down how quickly your body absorbs the carbohydrates, which means you will be properly fueled for your whole workout. And then obviously a protein source to obviously support the growth and recovery of your muscles, at least 30 grams with them. With your pre-workout meals, you want to have 1 to 2 grams of Himalayan pink salt and 1 gram of low salt. Now, people view salt in quite a negative way. Salt has a really important part to play in our diets. It basically replaces the body, replaces the electrolytes we lose in our body. Basically, you could either have a Lucozade and replace half the amount of electrolytes you actually need and consume a shit ton of sugar, or you can have some salt and replace all of the electrolytes you need and not consume very much sugar. So salt you should be putting on all of your meals, including pre-workout, including your sweet meals. You won't taste it, you won't have a salty yogurt, but it will really make a difference. And the reason why we want to make sure that we are properly have proper electrolyte levels throughout our workouts and throughout the day is because that's what helps with the mind-muscle connection. So if you ever had that workout where you go in, you can't really get a good connection with like any of the workouts, you don't really feel like it's actually worked any of your muscles, you don't feel like you're doing the exercises right, the likelihood is you are probably low on electrolytes. So get some salt in your meals. Literally Himalayan pink salt and 1 gram of low salt. You can get both on Amazon. Really recommend it. Intra-workout, EAAs, good but not essential, despite them actually being essential amino acids. For the most part, people, especially if you're on a plan with us, you'll be eating enough protein in your meal, so you don't like necessarily need EAAs. They're nice, they're a good, if you feel like they're helping you, then by all means go for it, but they're not essential. Intra-workout, 5 grams of creatine in water or squash. That is literally all you need. The reason we take creatine on a daily basis, or should take it on a daily basis, is that it is one of your muscles' energy sources. So when your body is working, when you're using your muscles, it uses 3 different energy sources: oxygen, obviously glycogen from your food, and then phosphocreatine. And obviously if you're providing your body with more phosphocreatine, then you're going to be able to squeeze out those extra few reps. I have 5 grams of creatine in like one of my portions of squash on a daily basis, but when I'm actually doing a workout, I will drink the creatine during my workout. Post-workout, ideally you want fast releasing carb sources, so things that are from like a high sugar content. This is where you can have your Cocoa Pops, your Frosties, that kind of thing, crumpets, any white bread, tortillas, white rice and pasta. And that's basically going to get the glycogen to your muscles that you've lost during your workout. It's going to replace those stores really, really quickly. Because of this, you want to get carbs into your body really quickly. You want a low fat content, so 5 to 10 grams. I fully appreciate that a lot of people have their post workouts for dinner. You might not want cereal. It's not the end of the world if you have a high fat content as a post workout, but it's not going to massively damage you. But generally, because we want quick carbs to the body to replace the stores ASAP. If you are training in the evening, what I would generally try and recommend is like have a squares bar immediately after training and then go home and have your dinner. And that will just kind of like help replace your muscle glycogen stores. And then of course you want a protein source, at least 30 grams, just because it is the building blocks of life and you want to basically repair the muscles that you've beaten up doing your workouts. I have nothing else to say on nutrition. I don't think I have. Cool. So training splits and rest days. Kind of touched on rest days already, and obviously the fact that team no days off is horseshit, and rest is just as important. A general protocol to follow: have at least 1 or 2 full days off and 1 or 2 active rest days. So an active rest day is, you might do cardio. So for me personally at the moment I have 3 rest days because I just enjoy resting. I have 2 full rest days and then I'll do all of my cardio on one rest day, or I would do 1 full rest day and 2 active rest days basically. So that's general protocol to try and follow it. Give yourself a good day off. There is no magic training split. It really depends on so many things. Your schedule, your goals, your time frame, the gym equipment that your gym has or you have, your training experience, that kind of thing. So there's really no magic split. A lot of people think they need to be on a really detailed push pull anterior posterior day split. An upper lower split, it works perfectly. So it really depends. There's no magic way. The only thing you shouldn't do is train 1 body part per day, because what you want to be doing to make good progress is applying the principles of progressive overload and hitting those body parts at least 2 to 3 times a week. And those are the prerequisites really that you want to have. Cool. So that is basically it. I will unmute you guys. Has anyone got any questions?
Hold on, you might want to mute me again because I've got the fan going in the kitchen.
We'll mute you again. Jess, any questions?
Yeah, I've been writing them down on my phone.
I love it.
I think you probably answered a lot of these, but seeing as I wrote them down, I thought I'd ask them.
Absolutely.
So progressive overload.
Yeah.
What about, I don't know if this was then the slide after you spoke about a deload, so perhaps maybe deload is the answer, but sometimes when you're going into the session and for whatever reason, maybe you've had, I don't know, a particularly stressful day or something, like you just can't seem to progressively overload and you're not hitting the same reps that you hit the last time, or you can't go up to the next weight or whatever. Is that just a sign you need a deload, or is it just that some days you just have an off day and you just can't do it?
I think it's just a case of some days you have an off day. Like not every training session you have is going to be like epic.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have training sessions where you didn't progress anything, mentally you weren't in it, you just weren't feeling it. What would trigger a deload is if you had like 2 week of sessions like that, and it was out of the gym as well, your body wasn't feeling good. If you came away from, because generally when you go into a workout and you're not really feeling, you've had a bit of a shit day, by the end of it you feel quite good and you're like, actually, like sometimes it turns into like the best workout you've had.
Yeah.
But generally at the end of it you actually think, oh yeah, I feel quite good, like that was good, like I'm glad I did it. Whereas if you were like getting to the point where you needed a deload, you'd be like, that was shit, I feel like shit, I hate my life, I want to go home and cry. So yeah, basically I hope that answers it.
Yeah, so you can have an off day, like you don't, if you don't progressively overload every single workout, it doesn't mean that you're like a terrible person.
Exactly, yeah, 100%. And sometimes like there will just be days, and you feel good, you feel fresh, everything's good. There will just be days where your body is just like, I physically can't, and it could be that your sleep, you didn't, you had less sleep, or you haven't hydrated as much, or you've had less food, or you've missed something somewhere. It's a very weird thing, your body, and it's not 100% of the time going to play ball. So it's not the end of the world if you do have a session like that. Not a single person on God's green earth has perfect sessions every single time. It's just life, and it's affected by so many things. So absolutely, if you can't do it on one session, then don't beat yourself up about it. The main thing is you go in, the main thing is you do the session, and then the second main thing is that you try again the next week. And what you probably find is the following week your numbers absolutely fly up. So no, don't beat yourself up about it.
Okay. And then the preset, I just wanted to talk about, the example you gave about the deadlift, where you're saying the 100k deadlift and you do a few reps at 40, 60, 80. I don't know if I understood it correctly. So you'd say, so in that scenario, your preset is a few reps, so 3 reps of 40, 3 reps of 60, 3 reps of 80. That is just one set.
So what I would, if I was doing it, what I would literally do is rack up 40 kilos. I'd do 3 reps. My rest would be me racking up 60 kilos, do, I don't know, 3 or 2 reps, and then my rest would be me racking up to 80 kilos, doing that, like 1 or 2 reps of that, and then I would probably have a good 2-minute rest, 3-minute rest before I then went and did my top set, just to make sure that my muscles weren't fully fatigued. But basically, like it is like continuous, like 1-2 reps, 1-2 reps, 1-2 reps, doing it like that. Because it's not your top set, it doesn't matter so much. And those are weights that you can lift quite easily anyway. That's
quite a good idea, because you've got to load the bar anyway, so why not load it and kind of warm up at the same time?
Exactly. And it's slightly different, obviously, like with pin loaded things, I would probably have a little bit more rest. Like if it was a pin loaded leg press, for example, I would probably have a little bit more rest in between. Like a minute, 30 seconds, that kind of thing. But if you're racking things, just treat that as your rest, and then make sure you have a decent rest before you go in and do your top set.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
That's all right.
And then, you answered this one. I was just going to say about the pre-workout, like I just wanted to know, like, really the reasons why you would have carbs and fats, but you explained that was energy source, and then the fats slow it down so that it lasts throughout the entire workout. Creatine, I think you answered this as well. So creatine, you have that every single day, even on a rest day?
So basically, creatine has got a lot of other like health benefits, like liver support, that kind of thing. The main thing that obviously people have it for is as an intra workout. But it has a lot of other health benefits, other than obviously like providing your muscles with energy. But the way it works is on like a cycling sort of phase. So you need to like have it on a daily basis for a week or so before you actually start feeling the benefits of it. You can't just have like, 1 scoop here and there and you think, oh yeah, it's really helping. It works on a cycling, and people that take a lot of it will have to cycle off it. But I mean, you have to be taking like 15 to 20 grams of that. 1 scoop is generally just 5 grams, and you can just have it on a consistent basis on a daily, but it's basically building up the stores, that's why you do it on a continuous.
That's good to know, because I think I was only having it when I was doing a workout, and I thought, like, on my rest days I don't take it. So and the nutrition that you said about the pre-workout, intra, post-workout, does that also apply to like cardio, or is that mainly focused towards a heavy weight session? It's
mainly focused to a heavy weight session. With cardio, I would take similar principles, but I would pick things that weren't as high in volume. So obviously, like, small calorie dense things like a banana, toast and peanut butter, that kind of thing, because particularly if you're going running, you don't want that sort of like coming back up the airways. So I would take similar principles of it, definitely, and definitely with post workout, similar principles. You want to get energy to your muscles as quick as possible, but certainly with cardio, you don't want something that's going to be really heavy and sat on your stomach. So
okay. And then my last question is, when you're talking about active rest days, what do you mean by active rest? Do you mean like going on like a decent walk, or is it like a cardio session? Like, so say I was going to do like a Sydney Cummins 30-minute cardio workout, is that active rest, or is that a training day?
I would say that's active rest, but it really depends on the intensity of it. So if it was a Sydney one, I would say she's sort of verging on it being like an actual workout. Active rest, I would say it would be more like a gentle cycle, or as you said, like a long walk. That's an active rest day, because what you don't really want is your heart rate going above like 130.
Okay. Whereas
with Sydney, I mean, cardio, yes, the cardio, it would be fine to do, but I would possibly do it on one. If I was going to do something that was like really high intensity cardio, I would only do it once, and I'd have 2 full rest days, if that makes sense.
So you'd have 2 full rest days and then 1 active rest, which would be the hardcore cardio day. Okay.
So if it was like hardcore cardio, I would do that. If it was more like LISS, like low intensity, like dawdling on the bike, that kind of thing, gentle walk, then I would split it over 2 days.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
cool.
That's it. Thank you.
Cool, that's all right. Anything from you, Matt?
No, well, I was just listening to you, obviously, while I was cooking, and a lot of it, sort of Ryan's mentioned before, but just sort of you going in depth into a lot of things is eye-opening.
Yeah.
Eye-opening.
I was trying to think of the
life-changing.
It does make more sense though, because I think, I don't know, like when you see it like that and you're all linking it all together, you see how it like creates a bigger picture, because you say like, oh, eat protein after your meal, and you're like, yeah, okay, and then you don't actually realize like like you're saying eat protein after your workout, but you think, okay, I'll do it because you told me to do it, but you don't actually know why.
Well, good. Well, I'm glad it's helped. Good. All right, well, if that is everything, I'm gonna go and hope that Ryan's done something for dinner. Doubt it.
Probably got prawn and tomato sauce.
Never forget prawn and tomato sauce. That was so bad.
Doesn't sound good.
Oh no, never. No, hopefully it's something nicer than that. All right, my loves, well, thank you for coming.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Bye.
See ya. See you, G.
Bye, my friend.